It is Monday. Welcome to the show. I had to think about what day it is. I'm Sean Stiers along with Vince D'Addario. It's been a crazy weekend. I tell you, I've got stories. I've got stories to tell. Tommy Guns came in asking about the wedding. I've got stories.
Man.
Should I save it for a little bit? Should I tease it? Let a few more people, turn on the radio, turn on their YouTube channel?
I'll tell you what, this one is your story, but I thought you were messing with me when I first got that text. I'll just say that.
I think a lot of people, when they first heard like what was going on at Jesse and Naomi's wedding, that's what we're talking about. Jesse, of course, who's here with me a couple of days a week, my one and only from my household, got married over the weekend in Canton, Ohio, and something happened during the weekend that was very unexpected.
That's an understatement.
And like I said, everyone kind of thought, I think everyone thought it was a joke when they first heard the news. It was not a joke, though.
Just the way it all happened, and with everything that has happened, with the show, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, what are the odds? I'll just say that. What are the odds?
So, I know.
Yeah.
Mad14ND says 45 minutes from where he grew up. I do have to say, it was great to have David Webb there. He was everything that I thought he would be. As he said to Tommy, he was surprised he wasn't at the wedding because there was, it was a great time. Half dozen IB members were there, open bar. We were
no way
partied it. Well, I'm just kidding. Of course, but I was surprised actually. There may have been crashers. I don't know. They weren't like in at the tables. There was no room at the tables, but
you were focused.
Easily just walked in. There was an open bar. There was an open bar at the rehearsal dinner the night before, and yours truly was responsible for the tab there. Again, I'll share what that tab was in a little bit. I'm just going to tease everybody.
You are a tease.
I'll talk about it. I just don't think people are going to believe it when I tell the story.
I don't think they will either, because I could barely believe it when you were telling me what was going on, and I was just like, oh my goodness gracious, how is this happening? But
did not get married at the Hall of Fame. We drove past the Hall of Fame a couple of times.
Nice.
But no.
On the way in and out?
Yeah. On the way in and out of the unexpected trips that we had to make. Put it that way.
Man.
I know. Now that I've teased everybody and made everybody mad, you're just going to have to keep listening to the show if you want to hear what it was. I promise I'll do it in the second segment of the show.
There we go. Okay.
I won't tease you and make you wait forever. But it's just a nutso story.
Because, I know a lot of the details, but I'm sure there's still stuff that I don't know. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing most of this as well, because I'm still kind of stunned. And
I texted Vince, and he was like, what?
Are you pulling my leg?
You've got to be kidding me.
Unbelievable.
I know. All right, so Jesse and Naomi's wedding story coming up a little bit later in the show. We will save that. But Notre Dame beat Boise State.
They did
28-7.
They went on and had a football game this whole time as you were dealing with your stuff. They didn't care. They
actually played. They actually played without me. I was a little disheartened by that whole thing. Did talk to people like during the wedding, people bringing up different things that were going on. And I wasn't like, oh, don't spoil it, whatever. I did, I'd check the score every now and then, but I wasn't like trying to find the TV feed or anything like that. But I didn't realize the Noah Burnett news until one of Jesse's friends told me about it. I was like, what? You've got to be kidding. He was hurt a couple weeks ago. I thought he was fine. And turns out Noah Burnett was hurt again. And now he's questionable again with a hip injury. And again, we'll kind of get to that in a little bit. Let's start off talking about the defense, though, Vince, because I obviously think it's pretty significant now. You hold Boise State well below their yard average, well below their scoring average. You hold them to a touchdown, one touchdown in the first half. That was it on a little quarterback run. Probably their best drive of the game. They did get into Notre Dame territory, obviously, a few times, but that was it. So after seeing Notre Dame's defensive resurgence Saturday, how convinced are you this was not just a Boise State game plan thing? Like we talked about turning the corner for Chris Ash and this defense last week. Where are you on just how good? Because the defense did look the best that it's looked all season Saturday against the Broncos.
I'm not there yet. I need to see at least 2 games in a row this kind of defensive resurgence, I guess is the best way, because that's what you said. I need to see it 2 games in a row. This game was by far the best defensive game that Notre Dame has had all season. It's the first time that I watched the game and I thought to myself, that's a Notre Dame defense out there. Like it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they were aggressive. The play calling was visibly different than it has been in the first 4 games.
Definitely.
It was way different. It was just way, way, way different. And it allowed the guys to play to their ability. And that hasn't been the case the first 4 games. It was the case in the 5th game. What's it going to be in the 6th game? Like it can't right now. It's a standalone. You know what I mean? And so if it is something that continues into game 6, into game 7, etc., then I'm on board. Then this team has an opportunity to do something, potentially special. But if it goes back to what it was games 1 through 4 in game 6, well,
do you include game 4? I mean, yeah, Arkansas hit some explosive plays, but I mean, I still feel like, especially from an athletic standpoint, Taylor Green, if not the best quarterback Notre Dame has seen all season, just in terms of the threat that he poses with the dual threat. He's obviously not as a pure passer, like he's not Carson Beck. I do think he's probably a better runner than Marcel Reed, because again, they held him to well below his yardage average. They held Arkansas to well below their scoring average, held them to 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. I feel like the Boise State game, kind of a continuation of what started at Arkansas, because we did see some different things. We obviously didn't see, we saw more man-to-man against Boise State. We saw more, a more aggressive front against Boise State. We saw more blitzing, which they've needed to do to get pressure on the quarterback, to make him make some mistakes. We saw plenty of that from Madsen Saturday. So, I mean, I feel like definitely games 1 through 3 are kind of in the same book. A corner started to turn, I feel like, against Arkansas, and we're continuing to see a good trend against Boise. Now, again, there were differences between Arkansas and Boise State, but I do feel like a good deal of that was also because of the respect that you had to pay to Taylor Green with, that's why you still saw so much zone coverage. You weren't going to see Madsen take off running like the threat that Green posed to you. You had to play more zone concepts against Green because you had to limit his ability as a runner.
They played a bunch of zone against Boise. It's just they played an aggressive version of zone. Like that's
right.
The play calling was light years different than it was even against Arkansas. Like the defense played better against Arkansas. The defense played like Notre Dame's defense of the last 5 years against Boise. Like the way that was called, the way that they, did it was just completely different. Yeah, they played better against Arkansas, but it was completely different than it was against Boise. So I would say maybe 50%. Maybe I'll give you half the game, but I can't give you the full game. I can't go there yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here is actually Marcus Freeman today at his press conference was asked about Kingston Viliamu Asa, and he played more against Boise State, more snaps than we've seen him play the entire season. He played more with Drake Bowen against Boise State as well. And kind of going to this question about, is the defensive resurgence, a true, is it a true resurgence? Is this just a Boise State thing? So listen to what Marcus Freeman had to say about Kingston Viliamu Asa and his increased snaps against Boise State, and tell me how you're feeling afterwards.
I think it started off, they played with a little bit more 12 personnel than we've seen all year. And so you had 3 linebackers on the field more than you have in the first 4 games. And so Kingston was the third guy. He wasn't going to come off the field. And then when we play with 2 linebackers, we have our normal rotation. And then you talk about the versatility of Kingston and Snead in third down situations being pass rushers. So it was intentional, but also because of what the offense was doing, it gave us more opportunities to keep linebackers on the field, especially Kingston.
Okay, so more linebackers on the field, specifically KVA. Does that encourage you, or does that kind of does that give you a little bit of pause? Because, again, it's like to the question, it was a fairly Boise specific type game plan, it sounds like.
It gives me pause. It's a little concerning because this is the game that the best of the linebackers have played all season.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it was because I think they were put in position to do what they are good at strength wise. They had, Jalen Snead, attacking the quarterback a little bit more than just playing in space. Now he did do a good job playing in space. Should have had an interception in the game. It was called back on a ridiculous penalty. I thought that, I thought the linebackers played their best game top to bottom. And part of that was because Bowen and KVA were playing at the same time. So
yeah.
I was hoping to hear, this is something we've been experimenting with, and this is something that we want to see more of.
Exactly.
That's what I was hoping to hear, but I didn't hear that. So that does give me a little bit of pause, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, KVA, he played 62 snaps, which is the most he has played in a game this season. But again, you hear Marcus Freeman talking about it. It's like, well, they got more 12 personnel, so we had more 3 linebackers out there. But he also, I think, played maybe one of his better overall games of the season against Boise State. And again, how much of that has to do with the fact that maybe you're guarding less space because of the fact that you have one more tight end on the field, and so you've got one less wide receiver and that kind of thing. I don't know. Like I came away pretty encouraged just watching the defensive performance, but again, like you hear that and you're going, well, how much of this is actually applicable going forward now?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like, okay, if this is the beginning of what we're going to see the rest of the year, then yeah, man, this is fantastic. Like the keys to victory that we revisited yesterday upon further review, defense got check marks across the board. They hit everything. And this is the first time that's happened in a really long time, it feels like. And so, if this is, I hope the staff, puts the film in and they watch it and they're like, you know what? Defense played really, really well. Maybe there's something that we need to harness here and keep going with, and the whole deal. So, whether Marcus Freeman has his hand in it more, whether Mickens has his hand in it more, or whether it's still just all Ash and he, finally found something. Dog finds his tail. I don't know, but hopefully it continues, because it was very obvious and very clear watching the game live and watching the game back that the defense was playing with a different amount of aggression, with a different, just different everything, and it showed. 4 turnovers, and, they're putting the ball on the ground and doing they're not missing tackles. It's just check. I mean, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, exactly. Felt like the coverage was stickier. It felt like the coverage was more physical. How much of that had to do with Leonard Moore, just having Leonard Moore on the field? I think
doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt.
That played a big part in it. Having Devontae Smith for about half the game, I think that Smith and Moore helps. It stings that now Devontae Smith is out again. You'd like to get these guys healthy, and like it's kind of becoming a little bit of an unfortunate trend right now. Just you've got all these guys with all these different bumps and bruises and missing time, whether it's the kicker, whether Moore, Devontae Smith, they've both missed time. Jaden Greathouse missed last week's game. So it's like you've got kind of a laundry list of these soft tissue injuries. And Marcus Freeman talked about that today, and we'll play the cut where he talked about it when he was talking about Noah Burnett specifically. But you got to get this stuff figured out. All these guys missing this amount of games because, like we've talked before, like when it's ACLs and MCLs and Achilles tears. It's like those things happen, unfortunately, regardless of what kind of surface you're playing on, regardless of who the strength coach is and that kind of stuff. But when you start talking about these soft tissue injuries, like you're essentially like when you're doing all this off-season conditioning and your continued in-season conditioning, that's the reason you're doing this stuff. And that's what these things start to become really frustrating when you see this many of them.
I agree. It's such a fine line when it comes to injuries. Where do you place the blame and who's doing what, and all of these different things. And now having a kid in college, like there is, obviously there's the strength coach, and then there's the position coach, and there's the head coach, and there's all the different things that you have. And I'm not showing blame anywhere, but like there's also the kid. Like if the kid isn't coming in and doing the preventative work with the trainers that you should be doing, even when you're not hurt, like if you're not doing that, that can lead to some stuff too.
And are you trying to do too much?
100%. Yes. All of it. You know what I mean? So you've got to thread that needle to find out what's best for you. And you got to listen to your body, and you got to do all these different things. And it's just a different scenario than being in high school and, that kind of a deal.
Exactly.
So, I'm not placing blame anywhere because all of these injuries are a little bit different and, all that kind of stuff, but it is unfortunate. But they're also coming into a stretch here where they shouldn't need everybody either.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about Kingston Viliamu Asa specifically. Marcus Freeman also talked a little bit today about the growth of the linebackers and what's next for them.
I think it's an accumulation of a couple things. The answer will probably be similar. If you ask me about the defense, it's the ability. We know those guys have an unbelievable talent. I'm talking all five of those guys that you would mention. Their talent level is extremely high. How do we get them to play that way consistently, right? And is it the clarity in what we're asking them to do? Is it them understanding what is being asked of them and then going out and do it on Saturday? I think it's just all those things and the experience that we have in a new system that's now allowing those guys to play with much more velocity and use that athleticism that we have. They're, Coach Bulla pours so much into those guys. I mean, the thing I really appreciate about that room, and I'll say that about multiple rooms, is the unselfishness. There's four of those five. Matt is young. I won't let Madden be the fifth guy, but four of those guys that could argue to never come off the field. But we got to split time. We got to roll guys. We have different roles for each of those guys, but they all played at a pretty high level on Saturday.
Yes. Okay. So
there's some
David Webb hit the nail on the head. This is when I stuck my finger up. I was pointing at you. In the middle of all that, Marcus Freeman talked about a new system.
You mean the old system?
Even though they're playing the Notre Dame defense. Yes. Doesn't it feel like the new system is essentially, or, whatever they're playing right now is not the air quotes new system. It is much closer to the old system. And maybe that's just why all these linebackers were played as well as they did on Saturday.
When he said that, my ears perked up for sure, because I didn't have a chance to listen to the press conference this afternoon. Sometimes I can. I did not. So this is the first time I heard that cut. And when he said it's a new system that allows them to come downhill and be aggressive and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, you mean the system that they had last year and the year before and the year before?
Right. The one that went to the national championship game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that was led by your defense and allowing them to come downhill and be aggressive. Like, okay, here we go. Now we've started to figure it out. Why did it take till game 5? But that was a kind of a telling quote there. In my opinion.
So too.
Yeah.
Thought so too. Very, very interesting. And it just, again, like like you let your linebackers play to their strength.
Yes.
I think that was a huge part of it. Like Jalen Sneed, just let him get after it.
Right.
A little bit.
Bowen's coming downhill and KDA's coming downhill. They're not as where is it? Here we go. Michael. He says before Saturday, linebackers were total read and react.
Yep.
They were definitely playing different. 100%. Anybody with any kind of a football brain, or even not so much of a football brain, can see that the defense, this linebacker specifically, were playing different. They were playing Like, oh, there's the ball. I'm going to go get the ball. I'm going to come downhill and blow some stuff up.
It was not fitball. It was football.
Yes. For the first time in 5 games. Like, let's go.
What's
so that's why
weird. What's weird is Marcus Freeman has not talked a whole lot about football versus football this year. I asked him once about it a couple of weeks ago, but you hadn't, like in the past, he would be, in past seasons, he would talk about it out loud. Like, we've got to get away from football. We've got to play football. Well, all they were doing was playing football through the first 3 games. And he never really said that out loud again, because he obviously didn't want to make pointed comments about his new defensive coordinator and all those kind of things. But it was obvious to anyone watching that it was completely different, and the way they were playing was different because of the things that they were, as much as what they were being asked to do versus also what they were not being asked to do, which is play the defense that they played so well for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I understand that you don't want to go out there and throw your coach under the bus and do all of those. I get it. I totally get it. I just wish he would have put his hand into the cookie jar a little sooner, because it feels like it's fairly obvious that that's what's happening. I don't have any confirmation that that's what's happening, but man, this is a different defense than we saw week 5 than we.
But I mean, ever since the the memeable face at halftime of the Purdue game during that interview, like, I hope someone saved that as a meme, and they've got the the eye roll that he made talking about his defense, because ever since then it sure looks, again, that's why I think it's a continuation that really goes back into that second half against Purdue. Was it great against Arkansas? No, but it was much better.
But they
still really good.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I think Boise State, like these last 2 games, it's a steady continuation, and we're now seeing them get much closer to where we thought that they should be.
Agreed.
I'll save his comments on Chris Ash for the next segment. I will also tell the much anticipated wedding story.
Get your popcorn ready, because
the wedding of one Jesse Stiers.
Man.
Yes. And things happened. You won't believe it.
I still don't, to be honest with you. I need to hear more details.
Okay. All right.
I'm ready.
I'll get into that. It's coming up next when we continue Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I'm Sean Stiers, along with Vince D'Addario. Now decked out in a sweatshirt, Vince D'Addario. It cold over there?
I made a bit of a quick change. Still in my school clothes and wanted to, get a little more comfortable.
Okay.
Getting home from work, but still with my little situation going on, which, it still hurts to sit down a little bit. So I figured I'm going to go sweat pants as opposed to the belt and dress pants. You know what I mean? So
yeah, still hurts going on 3 weeks later to sit down a little bit after that appendectomy. Huh?
Little 2.5 weeks. Yeah. So not quite 3, 2.5, a little under 2.5, but yeah. But with that said, Sean, I need to know how everything went down at the wedding over the weekend.
Need to know what happened at Jesse and Naomi's wedding. So we've got a lot of guesses coming up here.
Yes.
In the chat. USMA 87, did his tux not fit, or was Jesse so mad his barber wouldn't give him a shave and an eyebrow trim? He did shave himself, and he did a good job. That's no good. Razor burn. It didn't look like the tux looked really good. I'll have to show you. I don't know if you've seen any of the photos on social media or anything like that. Yeah,
I only saw the one that you sent me. That.
Oh, that's right.
And that was well into the evening, where it looked like he just got out of a swimming pool.
The boy sweats. He comes. I like when I'm outside and it's hot and I'm especially working out and stuff. I sweat too. He sweats buckets, man. And at the rehearsal dinner, he had, like a golf shirt on and a t-shirt underneath. And I was, like we were outside doing the rehearsal and the whole thing.
Oh, it's outside.
His shirt was saturated through. And then, of course, he scheduled the wedding in October because he was hoping to cut down on the sweating opportunities.
Yes, I'm sure.
Of course, we had one of the hottest first weekend of Octobers on record
ever. Yeah.
Yes, 85 plus degrees. And so when I went to check on him at one point, and they were doing the pictures and stuff, and he had the full tux on, he was already like drenched. The jacket was saturated on the outside.
Poor guy.
Some other guesses as to what happened at Jesse's wedding. Michael, his guess is I'm going to be a grandpa.
Whoa.
I am Tenzin, and Joe are thinking along those lines as well. No, it was not a shotgun wedding. It was nothing.
This was planned. This is This was planned well in advance.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just get to it. Let's get into this. We get into Canton, Ohio, where the wedding was. Gervasi Winery, beautiful place, outdoors, the whole thing. So we get in town Thursday night. Rehearsal dinner is Friday night. So go to the rehearsal dinner. Well, we do the rehearsal first. Go through the rehearsal, the whole thing. Things are going great, but my wife, not feeling well as we're out there doing the rehearsal. And she's like starting to feel a little sick to her stomach, reversal of fortune, quite honestly, some stuff came up and the whole thing. And I'm just thinking, okay, mother of the groom nerves.
Sure.
Right? That's what I'm thinking, because my mother-in-law, our wedding weekend, actually completely lost her voice. And so I'm thinking, it's in the genes, just some nerves. It's getting to her.
Super stressful, firstborn, all of it. Yeah.
Yep. So she's not feeling well during the rehearsal or during the rehearsal dinner. Didn't really eat anything during the rehearsal dinner. Yeah. I still, I did my toast and the speech and all that.
How did that go, by the way?
I felt like it went pretty good. Bobby gave me some good advice. He had done a couple, as a groomsman or best man kind of thing. He had done a couple things. So he gave me kind of a format to follow.
Nice. Okay.
I followed it, worked a couple little funnies in there, got a little tear.
There we go.
The bride to be at one point. And
you hit all the markers, man.
2 laughs. That's right. Compliment the the bridal party, and make a joke about a couple. Nice. Like the co-best men in the bridal party and that kind of. So I felt like it went pretty good. I've got it on video. Maybe I'll send it to you.
I need to see that. That's well played, though, and I'm surprised. That might be the first bit of good advice you've ever gotten from Bobby. So
that's exactly right. That is not a lie. That is the one and only piece of good advice I think I've ever gotten from Bobby. So rehearsal speech goes well.
Nice.
My wife's not feeling well after the rehearsal. We go back to the hotel, and then all of a sudden, like, she is in severe pain, like midsection, severe pain. I go to Walmart. I buy her, like a heating pad. I buy her Pepto-Bismol, all these different medications. I spent $60 on stuff at Walmart. Come back, tries to lay down. Pain is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, we're going to have to bite the bullet here. We're just going to have to go to the ER because the wedding is tomorrow. And for you to have this kind of pain, it's got, I'm like leaning towards, I think I know what it is. And I think we need to get to the ER, get this process started. With any luck, if it's what we think it is, maybe you'll be out tomorrow. So we do the ER thing. I won't, like by the way, from the minute we walked in the hotel room, from the minute we walked in the hospital, anyone and everyone who came in front of my wife, my son's getting married at 4 tomorrow.
Yep.
Everyone knew.
Yes.
Everyone knew.
Right.
So I'll just cut right to it. Severe pains that, they get her in there, get her checked in. They do the scan, appendicitis. 2 weeks to the day after Vince had appendicitis.
2 weeks to the day.
My wife has appendicitis. So
my goodness.
Spends the night in the ER. I had to leave in the middle of the night because I had to, like, my daughter, who's, like, has special needs, and she was part of the wedding as well. So I had to get her to where she needed to be. They finally had my wife somewhat sedated by then. So they get her in, again, remember the wedding is supposed to start at 4:00. We're waiting. They didn't get my wife in to get the appendix out nearly as promptly as here in town when Vince had his out. She got in, surgery started at 11 a.m. They closed somewhere around 1:00. Fortunately, the surgeon who did it comes out and, like, he's talking to me and my wife's parents, kind of telling us everything that happened. Really good guy. But it turned out it actually burst. Like, it burst. And so there was a lot of other, like, infected stuff that ended up in her stomach, and he had to irrigate it and, drain it over and over to make sure that it was all out of there. Because, of course, he knew what the goal of the day was, because I think probably before she was put under, she made sure that he knew my son is getting married at 4:00 today. So he comes out, he's like, okay, so here's what's going on. He, told us everything that happened. He's like, now I'm 50% sure, maybe he said 49%. You're probably going to end up back here later tonight after I let you go to the wedding. Now, fortunately, that didn't happen, but
that's good.
So as soon as the surgery is over, he signed off on all of the discharge papers to get her out as quickly as possible. He said, as long as she's able to walk, and be, steady, and all of her vital signs are good, she can go. So the surgery is over at around 1. We hadn't told Jesse, by the way.
Oh my gosh. No. Well, I mean, I get it. He's got a lot going on, obviously.
He doesn't handle stress well. And,
oh my gosh.
But we finally got to the point where it's like, okay, things now, wedding days. It's like things have to start happening now. Photos have to be taken and all this different stuff. So we didn't tell him until around 12:30. They closed on her somewhere around 1 after getting the appendix out. I think we got out of the hospital maybe a little after 2:00. They pushed the wedding back from 4 to 5:30.
Oh,
and
because of this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. We didn't tell Jesse. We had told the bride. We were talking with her. She actually told him, because we wanted her to, because he was actually out golfing with all the groomsmen that morning. So we were trying to just, as much as possible.
Sure.
So everything went fine. She was drugged up pretty good. Obviously still in a lot of pain, but we got to the wedding. The wedding started at 5:30 and we were there, and she didn't miss it. So,
wow.
Yes.
I will say that I am impressed with Stacy and the fact that she was able to, do what she needed to do to be present and accounted for the wedding and all that goes with it. And since I know very well how that felt, especially afterwards, I'm impressed with that part, and I'm impressed that she made it home in the car, driving all the way home, because that had to be just agony. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, didn't complain too much. I'm impressed. Yeah, so it was something.
Man,
it was. By the way, CJ had the bingo card. CJ and BB's playtime hospital trip. Definitely a hospital trip.
Yeah.
So that was it. But otherwise, wedding was great. Venue was great. Great. They had a great, cover band playing all the hits.
Oh,
and
nice.
Dance tunes and all that kind of stuff. The Zack Attack was what they were called.
No way.
If you're ever in that part of Ohio and you need a cover band, the Zack Attack. Yeah, did a really good job. But
did they play the Saved by the Bell song? Friends Forever.
I don't remember that. They did play. Forever. They did play Jesse's Girl though.
Oh, so. Nice. That's well played.
Okay. Yeah.
Well done there.
They did their vows and all that kind of stuff. I do have to say, by the way, Jesse stayed up till like 3:30 in the morning the night before writing his vows.
Jeez.
Which honestly,
I'm like waiting until the last second
thing to do. But
man, no kidding.
I was kind of, I don't know why I was so surprised for someone like him, so involved in sports. There were a lot of sports metaphors in both of their vows. Like teamwork and,
oh boy,
my best effort and, all this. But that's actually, I forgot the sports metaphor that Jesse used, after my wife got out of the hospital. He's like, it's okay. When we finally got there, he's like, it's okay. We've just made our halftime adjustments. We're going to go out and win the second half now. So it was kind of the start of sports metaphor day, but there was like teamwork and this, and they actually, like, the Cowboys actually came up in both of their vows.
Of course they did.
Because she talked about how nuts he gets watching the Cowboys. This show actually came up. The wedding officiant, when he was talking about Jesse, talked about how he does this show with me. So
yes.
Yeah. But great speeches by the co-best men, Matt Hinkle, Kalen Sadler, a couple local guys who Jesse's known since grade school and middle school, couple of the three Adams guys.
I know those boys well.
Yep. That's right. Right. Tommy's asking Mercy or Altman. We went to Altman, Tommy, and it was downtown Altman. And they told us if we did have to end up back in the emergency room again to go to Massillon, that we would have been better off going to Massillon because you can get in quicker down there. So
who knew?
Yeah. So that's it. It's the wedding experience that no one will ever soon forget.
Ever forget. Nope. Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully she's resting now, and you're waiting on her hand and foot.
As much as possible. She's very hard to make sit still, though. That's part of the problems. So Tommy wants to know where the newlyweds are off to on their honeymoon. They flew from Cleveland to DC to Madrid.
Whoa.
And then Madrid to the Canary Islands. Well, they will be spending the better part of this week, and then they're going to France after that. So they're going to be going 2 weeks. Yeah.
Holy moly.
She travels a lot for work, so all of the airfare and the lodging was paid for in points. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's impressive.
Yep.
Good for her.
So we'll see what kind of stories he has to tell when he gets back here.
I want to hear how it was broken to him and how he felt about the fact that for hours and hours he didn't know.
He thought it was a joke when she
I'm sure he did.
When she told him, he thought it was a joke.
Yep, I believe it.
She was like,
because I would have too.
Yeah,
like, okay.
Okay, so I've got something to tell you. We need to go outside. And he's like, you're messing with me, right?
No. What are the odds? Like, what are the odds of all the days in a lifetime?
I know.
That's the day. Like,
I know.
Wow.
And she kept kind of giving me a hard time because you didn't believe me. And this, I'm like, look, it wasn't true pain until we got back to the hotel. Like the whole night, it was just, I feel sick. which is kind of what you had, right?
Yep.
Like you're just feeling sick
Yep.
until it turns into stabbing pain.
Yeah, I went a whole like 30 hours of just like, I got a tummy ache, it's probably camp food, that kind of stuff. So I was like, I'll sleep it off. And then I couldn't sleep it off. So yeah, I get it. And you threw up, very similar, like, but those are all symptoms of it, believe it or not, is being nauseous and, all of those things. So
yeah,
it's all your fault.
All right. So that's the wedding story. We'll take a time out. We come back. We'll actually talk more football. We'll wrap up this hour with football, rapid fire, plenty of Notre Dame football talk coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down our number one of the show with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We can resume football talk now, Vince.
Sounds good. Listen, I was entertained by the whole story. So there was a lot going on. Like just a normal wedding story would have been interesting, but
I know.
You throw a little case of appendicitis in there and it gets real interesting.
I know. Did you find out anything that, like any details that were lacking?
No.
Okay.
I appreciated it. I think I've got everything now.
Okay.
So yeah. The one thing I got out of that whole story was that she's probably tougher than I am and will probably heal up much faster.
I was amazed. I do wonder like when the appendix actually did burst, because I think that's like she kept kind of getting pushed back. Some people were, more of a priority in front of her. If they had known like how close to the thing bursting,
right,
like how that might have changed.
I'm sure
getting in.
I'm sure, because I didn't have the burst, so she had that whole thing going on. Because
Tommy wants to know how long they've been together. When did I know as a father that she was the one? I think it's roughly 5 years ish that they've been together.
Wow, has it been that long?
At this point? Yeah.
Wow.
Time flies.
Because I remember the other one. The one I think probably prior to this,
when he was still in town.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. So
that one was the one that was like, can be nice, but it's like, when you talk about the high maintenance scale,
but
like you could hear, like it definitely reaffirmed like a lot of the thing, like when the best men were talking and the maid of honor and things like that we're talking about them. Like you could hear that they saw the same kind of things in terms of the connection that they have. And I won't say that like you knew or that I knew right away, but probably somewhere with the, between year 1 and 2, you could just see that there was a different kind of, ease and comfort than with previous girlfriends that he
more
had.
of a lasting, something that you could build on kind of a deal. Yeah.
Right.
I got you.
Right. Swang Dong, as his wife says, he says women are tougher than men.
Yep.
One thing that none of us men have gone through is child labor. So,
correct.
Childbirth. So,
yeah, we were there for the labor, but we weren't feeling it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we were there.
We were there.
We don't go through that though.
It's a little different. Made sure not to complain about the couch that I had to sleep on in the room there.
I'll go ahead and play this cut. Marcus Freeman talked today about Noah Burnett being injured again.
I do have something to say about this for sure.
Okay, so here we go.
Yeah, it is a constant conversation on cause and effect, right? Like what happened and how it happened and the return to play, and he feels healthy, and then all of a sudden, we get a muscle strain. And with Noah, it wasn't the same injury. With Devontae, it's the same injury. He calf strain, and he re-aggravated his calf strain. With Noah, it was a different injury. And so we got to keep figuring this thing out, right? And nobody's ever going to be okay with soft tissue issues saying we're unlucky. It's cause and effect. And so it's being able to communicate with Noah, and maybe it's a kid saying, I feel good. Okay, let's go kick you. And all of a sudden, maybe you felt good, but, it wasn't good enough, right? That now he was sore or in too much pain to kick on Saturday. So we got to find the right formula. He's in a really good spot right now, but he was in a really good spot a couple weeks ago, and then we, got injured again. So we got to kick him. We have to. You can't go weeks without kicking and expect to make it in a game. Like anything, you got to practice. But is it practice? Is it treatment? Is it some type of fueling thing with his muscles? We have to get this thing figured out, and we are all, from the kid to us to sports medicine to nutrition, we're all trying to figure out, hey, what is the right formula to make sure he's available for Saturday, but also he's prepared to do what he's asked to do.
All right. So there you go. That was Marcus Freeman, Noah Burnett. Vince, you said you had things to say. What do you want to say about all that?
Well, obviously, as the parent of a kicker, he's had some injury type deals. And this year, actually, he had a hip thing that it sounds very similar to what, Noah Burnett is dealing with. And the only, like, he could kick through it, but there was pain involved. And the only way to fix it, and again, it might not be exactly the same, but the only way to fix it was just to stop kicking completely. And just, you're done. You got to shelve it for a little bit.
Yeah.
It took my kid a week. And then it was the slow build back up to where he needed to be. But it was like the only medicine is just to stop doing it. Not Notre Dame has great, medicine, the physical therapy and all of the different things. And that's where I'm talking about. Like, now that my kid is back, he goes in there a couple of days during the day, like in between classes, and he's doing some different work and making sure it's all stretched out and doing all of these different preventative type deals so that this does not happen again. But to Marcus Freeman's point, there was no way to pinpoint exactly why it happened. There was no like event that it happened. You know what I mean? It was just all of a sudden, it's like, ooh, yeah, that doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it's the worst pain that I've ever been in. And it only happens when I kick. And it didn't happen when he punted, only when he kicked. So, so it's a very, kickers are weird, man. So like,
very specific.
It's a very specific motion. You know what I mean? And like I said, the only medicine was stop completely. And then do physical therapy and things like that, but to stop kicking completely. So it sounds like he kind of came back a little sooner than maybe he should have, because he was probably feeling okay. And then you go in there and you kick a little bit and you're like, oh, that's probably not good. And so he's probably back to square one, would be my guess.
Yeah.
The disappointing part is that they don't have anybody that they can count on to kick behind him. Like that is fairly disappointing at a big time program like
especially when you have two other kickers.
Sad.
Yeah.
Really. And I tried to tell people, like, Eric Schmidt is an amazing punter. He's an amazing kickoff guy. He's not a place kicker. And everybody's like, well, he did so well his senior year and blah, 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 blah. He's not a place kicker. And that has been painfully evident his freshman year at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Because every kick he puts up is an adventure. And the PAT that he missed was low. Like, he kicked it really low. And yes, they shouldn't have had the kind of penetration and all that kind of stuff. It's a low kick. I put that on the kicker just as much as I do on the protection.
Absolutely.
And it's rough that they can't find somebody to kick.
Beezer 12 Washingbeard asks how many games Notre Dame has lost because of kicker injuries in the Freeman tenure. He says he honestly can't think of one. I mean, he hasn't.
I agree. They haven't lost any.
Not because of a kicker injury, but this is 2 years in a row where you've had a kicker who's had to miss time because of a leg injury. Yeah. Remember, you had it last year as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, with the roster limits and all of those things, it's like they don't have anybody that's good enough to back him up. And I get it, because if you're good enough to be the Notre Dame kicker, you probably don't want to be a backup. So you're probably playing someplace else. Like, I get all of those things, but it's still very, very disappointing. And it's not on a coach.
Would you head over to the soccer field? Start auditioning guys
in the middle of the year?
Or at least asking how many of them kicked in high school?
The Diomede kid, or however you say his last name, like, he could probably get you by with what you need to do. I don't think you're going to be able to find somebody that's just going to walk in and be able to kick 40-yarders.
Right.
Extra points.
People look at the Brandon Aubrey thing and see his success story, but don't forget, he played a pro soccer career and then was done with that, and is still a young guy and was like, looking for something to do. And his wife recommends it to him, and he just goes out and starts working on it one day. And he had to work his way back through. Like, he kicked in the USFL before anything happened. So it's like, I don't think you just grab a soccer player, but again, a lot of these guys, like really good soccer players, will also be the kicker on their high school football team. So like, I think it's maybe at least worth an inquiry to find out, okay, which of you guys kicked in, were field goal kickers in high school. How'd that work for you? How consistent were you? Whatever it happens to be.
I don't know all of the rules about bringing guys on if they're under scholarship, and you know what I mean? Like, there's so many more rules about that now.
That's true. You'd probably have to switch them over to a football scholarship.
And do they have a football? I don't know how all of that works. And especially in the middle of the season like this, like, you're just kind of screwed with what you got on the roster, I think, right now, unfortunately. I mean, I already called Marcus and I told him I know there's a kicker that can kick extra points. And he's willing to transfer.
Make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But, he didn't call me back.
Man. All right, we'll take a timeout. Rapid fire coming up in hour number 2. Plenty more Notre Dame football topics still to come. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers, and Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I can't believe we're here already. Let's go.
I know. Just flew through with stories of weddings and appendixes and everything. The first part of
I know, right?
We got right here. I'm going to play you a cut. Cooper Flanagan, some good news for the tight end that Marcus Freeman talked about today. Here's Mr. Freeman.
He's getting closer. He's started to get a little bit of reps last week in practice. We'll see. We're going to try to add a couple more reps to him in practice to try to work up that capacity of how much he can do in the game. And you know, again, it's the value, right? Like, we need to make sure that when he's back and ready to roll, we can get the most value out of Cooper Flanagan. He would be a huge addition when he's ready, you know, and I don't know if it'll be this week, next week, but he's getting closer. And right now it's just not the injury anymore as much as the capacity to, you know, give us what we need on the football field. But he's an impact player. And so when we're able to get him back, you'll see him out there on the field for sure.
All right, so things trending in the right direction for Cooper Flanagan, who made the injury report as a questionable guy after tearing his Achilles in the Sugar Bowl last year. So, I don't know, Vince, how big a news is this?
I think that he would be the second best tight end on the roster if he's healthy. And, you know, that's an upgrade, right? I think the Washington kid is decent. He did not have a great game. Like, he's been steady throughout the season. He did not have a great game against Boise. But that could be an aberration. So I'm not going to, knock the kid for that. But I think Cooper Flanagan's a better overall tight end. He's not just going to be in there for blocking purposes and things like that. So if he can get to 100% health, that makes this offense even better if that's possible.
And that's the thing. I just think he gives you more quality depth.
Yep.
I don't think you want to rush him back
too
soon.
Agreed.
And I think that Marcus Freeman knows that. But I think that, like you said, like, Washington has been good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you had a guy like Flanagan, I think that if Flanagan was 100%, I mean, the guy played in 13 games last year. I think that he would probably have played in every game this year and would probably be the number 2 tight end right now. So
100%. Yes,
I think it's
100%.
really good news for them. And, the other side of that is now Washington is going to have to continue to work even harder if he wants to keep his place out there.
And I would say, considering Flanagan is questionable for this week, he's not going to come in and instantly be the number 2 tight end. You know what I mean? Like, they'll slowly bring him back. I mean, it's way too early in the season to be talking red shirt and things like that. So it doesn't matter if he plays only a couple of plays, but it's just going to be a slow kind of a comeback. And like I said, when he's 100% healthy, I think he's the number 2 guy.
Josh is asking if Raridan is gone after this year. I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion by any means. I think his draft stock is going to be pretty interesting because he has been good, but I don't think when you look at Eli Raridan's game right now, you go, that's definitely a guy that an NFL team is going to take even within the first 4 rounds of the draft if he were to come out next year. Do you?
No, I agree. And I think he will have, let's see, as a freshman, he played in 5 games, 7 as a sophomore. He played in a bunch as a junior. So he may be out of eligibility.
Wow, I was thinking he had 1 more year.
I think that's probably what Josh was talking about. Yeah. But I'm just looking at his bio on the website, and you might be able to get a medical red shirt, because he played in 5 games and then he suffered the season-ending injury. I don't know who knows what the rules are in the NCAA for, injury red shirts and things like that. But he may be able to get 1 more, but as of right now, he's played in too many games. So he would be out of eligibility.
Well, and I'm trying to remember when because 2022, so that would have been Marcus Freeman's first season. And I want to say it might have been that year because, it was the 4-game redshirt exemption came in before that.
Oh, yeah.
But it was either 22 or 23 where they added that 5th game where like if you played in the bowl game, you could still.
Sure.
So technically it went from 4 to 5. So I don't know if there's some wiggle room there.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So
like I said, with the season-ending injury kind of thing, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. And maybe he doesn't even pursue that as a potential. Maybe he's done with college. You know what I mean? Maybe he's just mentally done with college. It's time to move on to the next level. But yeah, that will be interesting to see if that's something that he wants to try to pursue.
For sure. Okay, describe CJ Carr's game against Boise State in one word.
I would say, now this is for CJ, right? It was average. It was average.
Just CJ. Yeah.
You know,
or for CJ.
Yeah, like that was an average game for CJ Carr. And so I'll say average here. He's been playing on another level the first 4 games that he's been allowed to actually, play. So maybe you don't want to count the Miami game because he wasn't really even allowed to really do a whole lot. But the next 3 games, he was playing at another level. He dropped back a little bit, and he'll be the first one to tell you about it. He was not happy with his performance, but it was still better than, like, his numbers were still not terrible, in this game. I mean, he still, completed 65% of his passes. He didn't play terrible. He played average, and this was a little bit of a dip. I fully anticipate he'll be back because, like, some of the throws that he missed, we've seen him make in the first 4 games. Like, it's not like, oh, I know he can make it. I've seen it in practice, whatever. We've seen it in games. You know what I mean? So, like, a little bit of a dip. I think he'll be right back to where he needs to be.
That's it. My word was solid.
Yeah.
Like average, solid, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he was still 15 of 23. Didn't quite get to 200 yards, but no turnovers. Was never sacked.
Right.
And, again, did he play his best game? No, but he played well enough. This kind of goes back to what Marcus Freeman was talking about last week when he was talking about Carr and his competitive. He played well enough for Notre Dame to win. They left some points on the field out there, especially with that drive that you get freaking fourth, or you get first and goal at the 1, and then they get the penalty, and then it ends up 4th and goal at the 1, and they get nothing out of that first drive. So like played well enough to easily have another touchdown on top of that. Maybe that kind of changes the perspective. Maybe because the game was so close in the first half and you're trailing a little bit, maybe that skews it a little bit. He didn't have a bad game though by any means, and I think that's probably the best defense that he's going to face the rest of the day. They brought a lot of pressures on him, and again, didn't sack him and he didn't turn the ball over. So if that's the worst game that he has, he's going to be all right. Notre Dame's going to be all right. So
yeah, and Boise brought some exotic pressures, and they did a lot of different things to kind of confuse the young kid, and he didn't do a terrible job with it. And now he has that experience, you know what I mean? And so I think it's only going to benefit him moving forward. So we'll see how it goes. But again, he's in game 5, and if that performance is average, then I think we're sitting pretty here as Notre Dame people.
Absolutely. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame was blank in its win over Boise State.
They were, and I've been kind of tossing around some different ideas here for this one, but I mean, they were solid. They did what they needed to do. They covered the spread, right? It wasn't the smoothest game. Some of that has to do with the 24 penalties that were, thrown. It was hard to get into a rhythm, whether you're on offense or defense. But they were solid, like they still moved up 5 spots in the AP poll. You know what I mean? So like, they did what they needed to do to continue to move
talk about
up.
Part of the reason why.
Well, I mean, yeah, fair enough. But they did what they needed to do, and I disagree with somebody in the chat that says it was sloppy.
And I've heard that. I've heard sloppy. I've heard choppy. I think that the penalties had a lot to do with that. And I don't know if like the fact that I obviously didn't get a chance to watch the game live because I was at Jesse's wedding, so I was able to fast forward and, kind of keep the tempo on the TV going a little bit. And I also knew the outcome. So I don't know if maybe that kind of alters what I'm thinking, but I think like the sloppiness is more about the penalties to me than the way they actually played. Now, again, could they have finished that first drive off Or, could they have finished it better? Of course they could. But again,
Sure.
if they do that, I think that alters a little bit when you see your first drive end the way that it did. I just thought they played, again, like I've already said solid for CJ Carr, but that's
what it was.
It was just a good game. They didn't make any really fatal mistakes. They created, defensively, they created a lot more turnover. They won the turnover margin by a wide spot. Offensively, they moved the ball. Really, what affected most of their drives were the penalties. That was it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And some were self-inflicted. Some of them were terrible. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, you can watch a football play and call a penalty on every single play if you really wanted to. You know what I mean? Whether it be holding or whether it be whatever. And this crew decided to do that, and that's not great. You know what I mean? So, like, there were definitely, like, this is the best defensive performance that Notre Dame has had this year. The offense wasn't necessarily at their best, no doubt. Nobody's going to disagree with that. But they still put up 4 touchdowns, and they probably should have had at least 2 more. You know what I mean? So, like, they were moving the ball. They had, a bunch of yards offensively. I think they almost had 400 yards of offense. I mean, it was just solid. It wasn't great, but it was solid. So, it's okay. That's okay. I don't want to see more than that, but
I've opened a can of worms by mentioning penalties. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. We will talk about the penalties, Notre Dame and Boise State. You'll hear some of Marcus Freeman's comments on that as well. When Rapid Fire and Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and IrishBreakdown.com continue. Rapid Fire continues on Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Let's talk some penalties, man. Beautiful part of that game.
Man. Like it was not good. Like it was there's what like I said, you can call a penalty probably on every play. That doesn't mean that you have to. And some of the ones that they called were pretty egregious and very important parts of the game as well.
Here's Marcus Freeman on how the penalties affected Notre Dame's third down situation. On third down, they faced an average of 11 yards to gain on third down out there.
I think every drive that we had, except for the one that we went for it on 4th and 8, we tried to throw it to Will Pauling, and it was at the north end, and it was incomplete. Every drive but that one that we didn't score, there was penalties or negative yardage plays, but penalties. Every drive that we didn't have one penalty, we scored a touchdown. That's not the only reason, but that's a huge reason, guys. We can't put ourselves behind the sticks because of a negative yardage play or a penalty, right? And if that's called beating Notre Dame, right? If we don't beat Notre Dame, we're going to be hard to beat, but we can't put ourselves behind the sticks because of penalties.
24 total penalties, Vince, between the two teams for 224 yards. That's blank.
And those are accepted penalties, by the way.
Accepted penalties.
Yeah, because there were a few more that weren't accepted.
Very true.
It's egregious is what it is. It's egregious. And Marcus Freeman is right. Like some of those penalties were legit penalties, and you can't do that. And it puts you behind, off schedule and all of those different things. No doubt about it. Notre Dame averaged like 4 penalties a game, and they had 12 in this one. Like you can't be an effective football team if you get penalized that much. No doubt about it. And he's absolutely correct. But some of those penalties were ridiculous and should have never been called too, So the whole thing was egregious. It was the play of the players, getting those penalties, but also the referees and throwing some of those.
That's the thing. It's just it's ridiculous. And these ACC officiating crews,
right.
How can you walk out of here and feel like you've done a good job when you're throwing close to 30 flags, like you said, because there were some that were refused as well.
Ridiculous.
24 were accepted for 224 yards. Each team had 112 yards worth of penalties in the game. And like from the very beginning, it's like penalty, and there were definitely a lot of borderline calls. It's just it's too much, and I hope that the ACC looks at this
right
and looks at it with a critical eye and says, couple over here, I think you probably could have just kept that in your pocket. You've got to do a better job than that. It does nothing for people trying to watch the game,
right?
Both in the stadium and of course on TV. It does nothing for that product, and it's beyond ridiculous. 24 accepted penalties. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's just way too many. And like you said, some of them were ticky-tack. Some of them just weren't penalties at all. And how do you call, pass interference one time and then you don't even call it at all on another one? Like just the Micah Gilbert throw, the deep ball over the middle. Like those two guys accosted Micah Gilbert and there's no call there. And then a guy looks at a Boise State player funny and they get called for, defensive pass interference. So like just some really, really bad calls and some bad non-calls as well. It's like, if you're going to call it here, they call the unnecessary roughness on, Tay Johnson, right? When he kind of threw the guy down, but then like not that far after the Boise State player just absolutely rocks a Notre Dame player out of bounds. And they don't call that. Like, just, I don't know, just not consistent either.
Here's a thought. Josh is saying the Florida State, Virginia referee crew pretty good when we got to hear the reviews. Like these ACC games on ESPN, they're letting them go inside the booth. I mean, if it's a Notre Dame home game and they've got an ACC officiating crew, like shouldn't NBC be working on that to take us inside? And
that was actually pretty cool
as well.
That game, just to kind of hear, and they were doing that in the XFL first. You got to hear kind of the behind.
But I mean, they've been doing it in all ACC games on ESPN.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
I've seen it a few other games as well. Yeah,
that's cool. I like that because at least you kind of hear how the sausage is made, I guess is the best way to put it. But
exactly,
I like that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I do too. I would rather see that. I think that if I'm a rules analyst, I'm probably worried that it goes too far, because I think once you do that, you really don't need the rules analyst very much anymore.
The only thing the rules analyst did in the Notre Dame game this past weekend was basically say that the referees were calling too many penalties. So,
yeah,
he's not wrong.
That guy was a little sleepy, though, wasn't he?
He was. It's like they woke him up.
Wasn't
hey,
Terry McCauley. Terry McCauley, I thought, was the main guy. I can't remember that guy's name. A little sleepy, it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Vince, does it feel like there's been some flip-flopping on the Boise State narrative and how good a win this was for Notre Dame?
That's my biggest issue. I actually mentioned this on the post-game show. It's like, okay, you got to find one narrative and you got to stick with it. Either this is one of the second most winning programs since the year 2000, and they're, coming in, they're disciplined, they're the whole thing, or they're just another group of 5 team that, comes in, gets their payday, gets beat, and leaves. Like, you can't really have it both ways. You know what I mean? You can't be like, well, Boise State might pull the upset here against Notre Dame because they're such a good team and blah, 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 blah. And then after Notre Dame beats them, it's like, well, they were just a group of 6 teams.
Right. It's another group of 6 team you're supposed to beat. And that's, because John in the YouTube chat is saying, no, Boise State's a good team. I agree with that. I mean, honestly, I think that, and I'm not saying they're going to have the best offense. I do feel like they're probably the best defensive team. And I think when I look at them, maybe them and Navy are probably, well, and I would say Fran Brown, Syracuse is a well-coached team as well. The talent level kind of fluctuates there with what Brown is doing. But my point is, Boise State's a really well-coached team, and you can see that in the way they play out there. And the fact that they were in the college football playoff just a year ago, and you've got the same quarterback from that team. And, you don't have the whole team back, but you've got a lot of guys who were in the college football playoff last year.
Still Boise State.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's literally, if you're going to play, there's a reason that, that was the first Notre Dame Boise State meeting, for one thing. Boise State is probably, of any of the Power 4 teams, probably, I would say, Oregon and Oregon State maybe has played them more just because regionally they're much closer to them. Power 4 teams, and going back to when it was Power 5 and whatever you want to call it before that, they wanted nothing to do with Boise State after that Fiesta Bowl win that Boise State had over Oklahoma. What's that been? Maybe 17, 18 years ago at this point. But they have sustained success through a lot of different coaches. They're a very good program, and again, a very well-coached team. And I'm surprised at kind of like the, Notre Dame, you're supposed to win that game and that whole thing. It felt like it flipped fairly soon to me.
Yeah, 100%. And, you definitely get that when it comes to Notre Dame, because remember all the people calling for Arkansas that they were going to beat Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. You can't go into SEC country. And then when they left, well, Arkansas sucks, let's fire the coach. You know what I mean? So that's a Notre Dame situation, frankly. But
again, like Boise State, when you look at the way Boise State plays and is coached compared to Arkansas, now, Arkansas has a few better athletes on their roster, but in terms of how they're coached, how they play, Boise State, clearly the better team between the two to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
They can play defense, for one thing.
Right. 100%. Right.
Okay, so Wildcat package. We saw it rear its head once again on that 4th and goal. Yeah, 4th and goal at the 1 play. Are you in or out on Wildcat? What do you want to see from this at this point?
Well, first of all, as a whole, I'm out because I've never been a fan of the Wildcat formation. I realized that, last year with Riley Leonard running the football was something similar to a Wildcat situation because you're directly snapping the ball and you've got guys lead blocking and he's running the football and everybody on the planet knows it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that situation, and they tried to tweak the Wildcat, and they've got CJ Carr lead blocking for Jeremiah Love. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. Mike Denbrock has done a great job of game planning and calling plays, and especially the last couple of weeks, he's overthinking it. He's really overthinking it when it comes to this Wildcat formation, dude. Just CJ Carr under center, hand it off to Jeremiah Love, or let CJ Carr do play action and throw it to somebody. You've got such a better chance of making this happen than doing that.
And I know Marcus Freeman was asked about this today. I don't have the cut. I can play it on tomorrow's show. We can kind of talk about it. You won't be here, but we can talk about it. Why does CJ Carr need to be on the field? What are you proving? Like, as soon as you line up in that formation, everyone knows what's going on. It doesn't matter where CJ Carr is at that point. And to have him as your lead blocker, I would rather just have CJ Carr off the field and put Jadarian Price
100%.
out there with him if you want a lead blocker for him.
100%.
Or Jabron Payne for that matter.
Yes.
Whoever it is.
100%. Just get him off the field. Just take him off the field. Because putting him out as a wide receiver doesn't do any good for you.
Yeah.
Because you're losing your hat advantage.
Yeah.
So take him off the field completely. Bring in somebody that's actually going to lead block. And you can still do whatever package that you want to do. I still say scrap the whole thing and just run a play. But, if you insist on doing it, 13 needs to be on the sideline. Period.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
Or maybe that's, your opportunity to bring in the backup quarterback, I guess. I don't know. But
that's still kind of that to me is the question. If you're going to keep the quarterback on the field, why don't you just maybe have Kenny Minchie out there?
But do you want him lead blocking too? I don't want him lead block either.
I would rather have a Kenny Minchie package, I guess.
Fair. Okay.
I should say. But if you're really going to ask a quarterback to lead block, wouldn't you rather have Minchie do it than CJ Carr? Why are you asking your quarterback,
right,
regardless of who it is? Why are you asking your quarterback to do a freaking, hey, let's run an ISO play behind the quarterback? Great decision.
Yeah, bring in Justin Fisher. He can play quarterback and lead block for you too.
I'm done. I'm done with the Wildcat.
Yep.
I just don't think they're getting out of it what they thought they were going to get out of it, because again, like they're not doing anything off it. You're like, in that situation, Jeremiah Love is getting the football. You don't anticipate the quarterback being the lead blocker, but you're not gonna, like Jordan. I've seen people mention Jordan Faison. Okay, and somebody just mentioned Jordan Faison in the chat. You put him out there, you bring him in motion, you fake a handout, like do something to, even if it's just eye candy, or have that as an alternative to just handing the ball to Jeremiah Love. Like just
there's a million different options.
They're just way too basic.
Yeah. And
when you add the wrinkle of having your quarterback as the lead blocker, it makes less than 0 sense.
Well, and the play that they had the penalty on, I believe, was third down, and they ran the Wildcat and they put CJ Carr in motion, and like they're, and luckily they jumped offside, or it was at a false start or whatever. But like, just terrible. Like you don't have the offensive disadvantage that you think you do in order to run the Wildcat. You got a good offense that you should be able to pick up a yard just running your offense.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Here's an alternative. Like it does, and I'm not talking about Wildcat. I'm talking about a traditional run a play. How about go back to Jabron Payne like he was a couple of years ago as your third down back? Remember when he was able to get those tough yards? I realize it was a different running back coach, but I'd rather see that than the Wildcat at this point.
I think there's a kind of a laundry list of things I'd rather see that aren't the Wildcat at this point. It's time to shelve that particular plan unless you just set it up completely differently.
Concur.
It's time to run the regular offense, man.
Take our final break, and then we've got some Penn State. We've got some Texas stuff.
Oh, let's go.
Crazy weekend of college football. James Franklin's complaining again. It's all coming up. We'll conclude rapid fire. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. And we continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid fire. Got a time for a few more topics.
Oh, yeah.
With Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. All right, Vince, fill in the blank. Penn State head coach James Franklin complaining about travel after losing to UCLA is blank.
Is a page right out of Lincoln Riley's playbook is what that is. And I think it's hilarious. I feel like they called each other and exchanged notes on how to explain away a bad loss away from home that happens to be in another time zone. I mean, I listened to the entire post-game press conference from Franklin, and it was just one excuse after another. And, you know, I'm not overly surprised by the fact that people want his head on a platter.
Yeah, it feels like they wrote that playbook together, like they came
right.
And like,
seriously,
okay, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? Here's what I'm gonna say. Look, UCLA had just traveled to Evanston the week before and lost to Northwestern the week before. And they come home. It was Penn State's first trip out of Happy Valley since the Orange Bowl, losing to Notre Dame last year. Mm-hmm. They hadn't had to travel at all. Notre Dame goes to California, of course, every year. They've already been to Miami this year. Like they've been back, obviously, back to Miami since the Orange Bowl. And it just, I guess when Penn State flies to California, they've got to take a bigger plane because, they're taking, I don't know if it's more people or equipment or whatever else. I would think that they would be, sending the truck out to the West Coast at the beginning of the previous week or whatever. But so apparently when they fly to California, they've got to bus down to Harrisburg because they've got a bigger runway on their airport. And this is like the thing that he's complaining about. We got to take a bus and then get on a plane. It's like join the rest of the world of people who have to travel, like
right.
I realize the coaches had nothing to do with these TV contracts, like they didn't sign off on it, but stop complaining about it already because guess what? You've got it. You're probably going to California every year now because you've got USC and UCLA. You're going to have to take some longer road trips. And again, Notre Dame has been making these trips every year as an
exactly.
So if you're Penn State and you don't like the big check that you're getting from the Big Ten, just get out of the Big Ten and become an independent again and see how that goes for you when you can make your own schedule and see what your budget looks like. I'm tired of all these coaches complaining about it. You got to deal with it. Like find a way. All you're doing is sending a bad message to your team. You're sending the wrong messaging to your team because all you've got now is excuses about why you lose. And that's all it is. Whiners cry. That's all it is.
And your boss, your president, and your athletic director voted to bring them into the league. That's on you, man.
Yes.
Like it was a unanimous vote to bring them in. So you can't complain about having to go out there and play a game when you voted to bring them in. That's on you.
Apparently in the Big Ten, traveling is for losers, is what it comes to.
Apparently. Should have thought about that before you brought in all these West Coast teams.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But, I mean, you also lost at home to Oregon.
Exactly. And you know what? You could even kind of explain that away. Oregon's a really good team. They're in the top 5. I get it, even though it was enjoyable to watch them lose at home during a whiteout and all of those different things. No doubt about it. But you could at least explain that away. There's no explaining away UCLA. None.
Absolutely none.
UCLA hadn't even had a lead on anyone all season until they led wire to wire in the Penn State game.
Crazy.
Come on,
so,
man.
Let me ask you this. They fell from number 7 in the polls out of the AP rankings this week. They are still number 22 in the coaches poll. Does Penn State deserve to be ranked after losing to UCLA?
It's hard because that is a deep, deep fall, obviously. And with Notre Dame, when they were 0-2, they were still ranked. There was a lot of hatred going on there. And, even though they lost to 2 top 5 teams and by a total of 4 points and all of those kinds of things. The problem for me, if I'm trying to defend Penn State or Texas for that matter, it's hard because we're going to be sitting in double digits in October. It's going to be a double-digit October date, and both Texas and Penn State, neither one of them have a Power 4 win. Neither one.
That's true.
That's hard to defend, man. Like, that's hard to defend. That's the football season's almost half over, and you haven't beaten a Power 4 team yet. That's not a top 25 team.
That's very true. That's a great point, because, by the way, this is 2 weeks in a row we haven't seen our old friend Penn State Sports Talk, who used to come in here and troll us. And just a week and a half ago, he was telling us how Penn State was 3-0. Looks a little bit different today, I think, when you're looking up at that big L to a team that was 0-4. And I mean, I agree. Like, it is a steep fall from 7 to out of the rankings.
It is.
But Jerry Neuheisel became offensive coordinator. He had like 2 days to put an offensive game plan together, and he didn't just put together an offensive game plan. He changed the whole offense in 2 days' time. Nico Iamaleava, how do you say his name? I can never say his name right.
Iamaleava.
Nico definitely played his best game of the year. Like, I think Jerry Neuheisel, you've obviously got an interim head coach. I think Jerry Neuheisel may have just made a case for himself as the head coach when this whole thing is said and done.
Why not? Like, what have you got to lose if you're UCLA at this point?
I know. But I mean, I do think Penn State's probably better than Iowa State and Arizona State, who are still in the polls. Cincinnati in there after knocking off Iowa State, by the way, handing them their first loss. Cincinnati's becoming a little bit of a darling. But I mean, the point that you made, you still haven't beaten a Power 4 team. So until you do, and you just lost to one of the worst Power 4 teams there was. So until you do, I don't think you probably deserve to be ranked.
Yeah. I mean, they'll climb back in at some point, I would think, because they're not a terrible football team. They're just not an elite football team. So they'll probably crawl back in at some point. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a wake-up call if you're a Texas fan or a Penn State fan. Like, you're not playing well enough. You go out to UCLA, you lose to a team that doesn't even have a head coach, and you go to Florida and you lose to a team that wants to fire their head coach. Like, exactly. You can't lose to those teams. I don't care if it's on the road. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. and to your point about Texas, I think that's kind of where it's at. They really haven't shown it's what's amazing to me right now is, now granted, Clemson obviously won over the weekend. Penn State, Texas, and Clemson were all considered national title contenders.
They're all top 5 teams.
All ranked in the top 5 at the beginning of the season. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just nuts to see where they are right now. Because again, now, does Notre Dame have 2 losses? Yes. But comparing Notre Dame's 2 losses to those other teams' 2 and 3 losses, completely different area codes that they're in when you make those comparisons.
And we're sitting here and we're complaining about the Wildcat for Notre Dame, rightfully so, all of the things that we just said. But how would you like to be Penn State right now? And they had 4th and 3 from like the 3-yard line, and they just decided to run the quarterback up the middle.
Yeah.
What a terrible, terrible play call on the final play of that game, where you had an opportunity to tie up that game.
Yeah.
And that was your play call.
Especially with that quarterback.
Correct.
Running.
Like, he's supposed to be this, first-round draft pick in the NFL, and you don't even let him throw the football. That tells me pretty much everything I need to know about Drew Aller and what his coaching staff thinks of him.
Yep, exactly. Crazy weekend. A crazy weekend of college football. It's, again, like when you look at where those 3 teams are right now and what this season is, Iamaleava. I'm going to have to go find a pronunciation.
There's a lot of consonants, a lot of vowels, a lot of syllables.
All right, Vince, I will talk to you later, sir.
Yes, sir.
He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stearns, and we will talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.